I'd call the Macomb City Council Committee of the whole to order, please. If the clerk would call the roll.
Justin Shu,
Here.
John Vajezi, Byron Shabazz,
Here.
Dave Dorsett,
Present.
Ashley Katz. Here. Don Nguyen,
Here.
Dennis Moon,
Here.
6 present.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Citizens wishing to address the City Council on matters germane to the agenda of tonight's meeting will be limited to 3 minutes and are asked to be brief and concise in making their remarks. Comments submitted by mail or email will not be read aloud, but a copy will be provided to each member of the council and made a part of the minutes of this meeting. Does anyone wish to speak to the council in the public comments section of tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 1. Discussion on an ordinance annexing certain territory located at Section 33 Township 6 North, Range 2 West within McDonough County. This had first reading last week. Lisa, could you remind us the parameters here?
They're just annexing into the city.
Okay.
The intention is the property would be, I think there's either a sale pending or in the process of closing. And one of those conditions of that sale was to obtain city-provided water. To do so, we typically require annexation or an annexation agreement. Since they are contiguous, we would require annexation.
Very good. Thank you. Does anyone from the council have any questions or any discussion regarding the annexation of that property? Already hearing none, we'll place that on for second reading and final action at the meeting next week. Item number 2. Discussion on ordinance to authorize the issuance of a special use permit to allow a greenhouse in an R2 single-family residential zoning district at 1003 East Carroll Street here in the city. This had first reading last night. I would note the petitioner is present if the council has any discussion or questions you'd like to direct to him or staff. Alrighty, hearing none, we'll place that on for second reading and final action at next week's council meeting. Item number 3, discussion on bids received for the Macomb Fire Station roof replacement, along with HVAC improvements and entrance pavement replacement. There's a memorandum in your packet from Chief Meyer. Chief, could you come up and go over that along with the bid tabulation sheet for us, please?
Good evening. This is for replacement of the roof, as it says HVAC and the concrete out front. The HVAC and the roof are all 20-plus years old. The units are starting to require a lot of expensive maintenance on them. The roof is also 20-plus years old, and we're getting quite a few leaks, and it is in need of repair. Both those items have about a lifespan around 15 to 20 years, so they are due. The concrete approach out front is all cracked and is actually starting to settle some, and that's where our trucks run in and out all the time. It is also part of the public sidewalk out in front, so it has become kind of a hazard. It was originally placed in our budget for the 22-23 fiscal year, in which it was budgeted for $375,000. The bids were, or the engineering part of it was let out to IMEG on June 6th of 2022, and we received the bids finally in July 21st of 2023. So almost 18 months went by for them to engineer the projects. And you can see there in the bid tabulations that it came in $120,000 over what they had projected as it's a budgeted item. We believe that the length of time that it took to engineer the projects probably had something to do with the increased costs. We expect it, if approved, to take the additional cost out of the general fund. So.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Alderman Dorsett.
I don't know if this is for the chief or the city administrator, but why was an engineering report over a year getting to us? I mean, it's a roof, an air conditioner, and a concrete job.
Totally agree. So we are having discussions with one of the partners of IMEG. We've been very unhappy with their performance recently. So Dan was doing everything he could to continue to push them along, but they didn't have staffing here in this office. Eric Moe was the resident engineer here a few years ago. He got transferred to, I believe, Rock Island or Rockford. And then Megan Crook, who was not the resident engineer, but an engineer at the firm, went to the county a while back, so they didn't have staff, was their excuse. So we were pushing as hard as we could, but they had a part-time project manager that Rick Beal did the work. So we are having discussions with them at a higher level, yes.
Anything else, Alderman Dorsett?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Moon.
Are these formal discussions or informal, or, I mean,
We're starting with a meeting with the principal, the mayor and I.
I just wonder if any alderman would care to participate, or you don't want them to participate, or what's the...
I don't think it'd be inappropriate. We just want to get somebody down here and start the conversation and face to face about why a project of this size and the scope, which is fairly minor, took this long.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you may have heard the Public Works Director also talking about a couple of road projects that they engineered this year as well, which are delayed. So be a substantial discussion, I believe. But I think the chief's right, and we would agree that the likely cost increase was due to inflationary pressures over the time we initially budgeted this and the time that it actually went to bid. So this was before the Public Safety Committee last week, and it's our intention to place this on for action next week to proceed. The work just needs to get done, and likely will not see a reduction in costs even if we rebid it. So,
yeah, so we have discussed rebidding it. The mayor asked if we thought that would help. My experience is it would only be higher if we wait any longer. In these projects, there's really nothing that we can take out to value engineer it to make it simpler or cheaper. They're all pretty basic projects, so we really don't have an option, I'll say honestly, besides proceeding. We do have the funds in the general account to cover this overage. So.
Alderman Dorsett.
Well, and this is yet another one of these overruns that we're able to go to the general fund for this year.
Correct.
But we've also got a slightly unusual funding mechanism this year that we didn't have going forward. We've got some things left over from the pandemic years and that sort of thing. This year's been good.
Most of that's been
that
spent.
money is
I
separated out.
understand
So,
that,
yep.
but we're just using what we've got, and those numbers are not what we'd like them to be with the census and other things. So I like to be careful with going to the general fund
Sure.
for overruns.
I understand that. We feel the same way. Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, just sitting here thinking about this, is there a possible way to recoup any of this cost from the engineering firms? Aren't there?
We can say that. I think the loss for them will be lack of future business from the city.
That'd be good. Okay, I just
We can throw that into the discussion on Wednesday.
Absolutely, we will, but
And again, our intention is to place this on next week for final action. If there's no other questions, any concerns, additional. Alrighty, thank you, Chief. Item number 4, discussion on bids received for tuck pointing City Hall wall and the depot project. There is a bid tab and a memorandum in there from the city's building inspector, Eric Lenart. Eric, would you mind coming up and going over your memo and the bid tab for us, please?
Thank you. These two projects actually started kind of last year. We got some separate bids for the tuck pointing that we had here on the front of City Hall, and had separate bids for the wall and then the train station. That cycle ran its course. We got this done here. Those two were left for later because of budget constraints. So late July, we put out another bid for both of these projects to be done together as a combination, and surprisingly found that the bids actually came in a little bit lower than the two projects bid separately. So this wall over here, everybody knows this wall along the alley, it's about 170 foot long. got a lot of, it's got a lot of wear on it. A lot of the mortars falling away, and as the years go by, it's just going to continue if we don't get that taken care of. And then the train station, everybody knows our train station as you look at it. You've got a stone band about 3 foot off the ground, runs all the way around. Everything below that is starting to get the same way. There are pieces of brick that are popping off, faces are popping off. So they're both in need of repair, both in need of tuck pointing. So these bids are to do those two projects, the train station all the way around that lower band to be completely done, and then this wall over here to be done from front to back. I think a little bit was done years ago, but they're going to finish that out. So the recommendation here is to go with the bid from ATCO. If you drive around town, if you go by the police station, you'll see ATCO right now is in the process of doing the building right across the street from the police department. They do some pretty good work. So,
Any questions for Eric? Alrighty, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. We'll place that on for, and just one note, though, we had a total of $90,000 budgeted for that. So if y'all approve this next week, that's about a 40% savings, I guess. So a little bit of give and take there. So, alrighty, we'll place that on for final action then at next week's City Council meeting. Thank you. All right, item number 5 is quarterly reports from our department heads. So there is no, well, yes, there is. The clerk made it clear today that the women were going first this session, and she's the one that established that. So we'll start with the city attorney.
Thank you. The first page is our ordinance violation report for the quarter. You'll note that current year, we're at a total of 125 citations. Last year, we were at 167. I think that decline correlates with the lower collections this year as compared to last year. Provide information regarding training, resolutions, and ordinances that I've prepared, as well as other matters. One of those is that the clerk and I have done one demo on FOIA software, which is in the budget for this year. We are hoping to look at a couple other options as well, and we've also talked about seeing how Laserfish or some comparable software might facilitate that process as well. But we're obviously hoping to have that done this fiscal year. So hopefully that's on the horizon. As you may recall, the clerk and I are now handling all FOIA requests for the city. So the number that I've dealt with this quarter is substantially higher in prior quarters. And this is only a partial. I think I started in June doing that. But we've had 50 to date in the quarter. And I've also continued to provide water lien collections as that's being handled by our office as well. 59% collected for the accounts that we had placed this quarter. If you take out what I believe to be fairly uncollectible, our number is actually 84% collected, which I think is fantastic for our water fund. We've also collected on some older liens that had been recorded, as well as a substantial account that had not gone to the lien status. It was part of a foreclosure and a bankruptcy, so I'm happy that we were able to recover that large sum of money.
You got any questions for Lisa? Already hearing none, thank you very much. Business Office, Director Worley.
Good evening. So I'll just start at the top of my memo. There's several reports attached to my packet. I won't go through each one individually, but there's the cash summary report, and that shows the actual cash balances per fund. The second report is an update of where our projection is for the first quarter for just the general fund with revenue and expenses. And then the third attachment you have is the 23-24 fiscal year tax revenue. So it highlights all the different tax revenue we receive, several years of history, and then the 3 months so far into this quarter. And then I did add a column that shows the budgeted amount that we had projected for this fiscal year. And then the final report that was not included but was distributed to the staff leadership was a budget activity report, just to make sure everybody's on trend. We're 25% of the way through the year. And I highlighted different expenses that they needed to review or categories to make sure that we're keeping an eye on for the rest of the year. There's utility billing information within my memo. If you have any questions on that, please reach out. The top 5 users has changed slightly. WIU mainly is always our top user. Accounts payable, we've been working on the implementation process of our JP Morgan Chase procurement cards and credit cards. And so we're going to be streamlining lots of our payments to try to maximize our rebate revenue and also streamline processes within the office, saving on postage and things like that, that we can set up automatic payments with them and our different vendors. Listed out the top vendors paid this quarter. Moving on to our human resources, benefits, risk management, we've had 17 reported workers' comp claims this quarter, 11 general liability claims, which that might be a little inflated with our storm that we had through that quarter. We onboarded 34 new employees, and I updated some counts there for our employee count that we have. Also, we completed setup of CPR training for City Hall staff. We had our first session actually this past week. We have another one in 2 days, I think, actually. And then I also became a sexual harassment and diversity trainer, just so we can have in-person training for all of the city staff. So I will start doing that. That is a mandate from the state to complete that training for every employee. And I will take any questions at this time. There's a lot more activity going on, and so feel free to ask any questions, stop by anytime, so.
Any questions for Melissa? The 34 employees would have been mostly seasonal folks, does that sound right?
And I would say, well, the onboarding would be seasonal, yes.
Okay.
Definitely a good portion of that cemetery has a lot of seasonal employees.
And then the pool.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And next, Ms. Ortman from the Public Works Director's position.
Good evening. Well, I don't know if you could tell from my report that but a good portion of this quarter was spent dealing with storms, with ones in May and the one in June. The Operations Division has devoted more man-hours this quarter to forestry than is normal, which is kind of taken away from time spent on patching, concrete repairs, hydrant repairs, et cetera. But they're going to make a strong push to get caught up, and we are getting 2 additional employees here in the next couple of weeks that will certainly help, and we'll be up to full staff at that point. I do have to say the operations staff did a great job handling the initial response to the storm and getting the roads open quickly and safely. They worked long hours to remove all the storm debris that was brought to the curb. You may have noticed that we did take debris from homes, private trees that had fallen, because the amount of damage that was done in the June storm particularly was greater than normal. I would like to thank the McDonough County Highway Department for their help in getting debris out of the yards and also helping us at the yard waste site. There's a photo of Mount Brushmore in my report. And that would not have been possible without their equipment they brought out to the yard waste site to help stack it and push it in. Otherwise, the yard waste site was getting to the point where it was very hard to get around, and especially once the responders afterwards showed up, we'd have run out of space in no time flat. And we were very, very thankful to the communities across Illinois that came in the week of July 24th. This was the first event in recent memory where we had to activate the IPW MAN mutual aid system. There were a total of 15 responders that came in from Arlington Heights, DuPage County, Genoa, Jackson County, McHenry County, Oswego, and Rolling Meadows. It was an excellent group to work with. These guys came and they were ready to work, and they got a lot done in that week. We hauled 600 tandems of debris to the yard waste site. I'd also like to thank WIU Housing for working with us to obtain lodging for the responders, and to the Transit Department for scheduling a bus to take the responders from the Street Department to Thompson Hall. It made life a lot easier because they all showed up in dump trucks or bucket trucks or something, which is not really the best for commuting.
And then I'd also like to thank Hy-Vee. They provided coffee and breakfast every day for free to the responders, and Jimmy John's and Subway also provided lunch at no cost to the city. The final actions that the Operations Division has to end the response to the storm is there are some trees that have been damaged to the point where our city forester feels they're a danger to leave standing, and then we need to grind and remove that mountain of brush out at the Yardway site and get it gone so we can continue our normal operations of the Yardway site. The Water Division was also fairly hard hit by the storm. The water plant, as you saw, lost a section of its roof, and then they were without power at several facilities, the pumping station at Spring Lake, and as well as the controls for the water towers. So the water operators did a great job of making sure the generators stayed operating. So they were refueling, they were making a lot of checks to make sure that the towers were at the level they needed to be so that there was no interruption to water service. The roof is secured for now, and we're in the process of working with insurance to get it replaced. The wastewater division also lost power, surprise, surprise, to the lift stations at Spring Lake. The wastewater treatment plant itself, though, did not lose power. And the wastewater staff also did a great job in making sure there were no wastewater overflows at the affected lift stations. Despite storm work, there were a few other things going on this quarter. The only active construction project that we had this quarter was the 2023 roadway improvements. Phase 1, which was the regrading of the side streets off of West Jackson, it was completed, and Phase 2, which is the mill and overlay at various locations, started and should be complete, if not end of this week, certainly next week. Vance Excavating still has a little bit of seeding to do. They'll be back on Dudley Street here in the middle of September. We're still waiting on McCarthy, in case you were wondering about the downtown project. We're still waiting on McCarthy to come back and punch list. You may have seen them out on the square today, so they're making a start. I think they've pushed it off so long because they also have seeding to do that can't be done until after September 15th, according to IDOT specs. We had a few bid openings where the bids came in much higher than expected. Johnson Street reconstruction, Adams Street reconstruction, and the Burgess Lift Station replacement. The engineers for those projects will be looking at changes that can be made so that we can rebid the projects and hopefully get a lower cost without affecting the integrity of the project. We also received notification that the Burlington Bridge replacement project was not selected for the IDOT Special Bridge Program. So we'll submit it again next year, and hopefully we'll get funded then. The bridge is starting to show its age, and each year when the county staff inspects it, it is showing deterioration every year. So I'm hoping that at some point IDOT will pay heed to those inspection reports and get us on the list. The only other project awarded this summer was the 2023 sewer lining project, and that was awarded to Hare Construction. This is part of our annual sewer lining project. Our program, we're able to reduce the amount of groundwater and other non-wastewater water getting into our sanitary sewer, and that's much more cost-effective than waiting for the sewer to completely collapse and then going in and replacing it. So thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Alice? Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Downtown and Marketing Director, Ms. Ballard.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start a little bit out of order here and first highlight some of the events that we've hosted for this quarter. First of those being Park and Cruise. We kicked off Park and Cruise this season in May with our highest attendance participation to date with 83 cars in attendance. The Downtown Summer Concert Series also kicked off this quarter with fan favorite performances from the Nauvoo Pageant Bagpipe Band and the King Graffiti Band. We were able to continue the 4th of July celebration and help with our partners at WIU to continue that at Vince Grady Field. And we also hosted 2 of the 4 municipal band concerts, one of those being at Heritage Days and the other being at City Hall Lawn. Moving on to our service awards, we were able to recognize 5 outstanding City of Macomb employees for their years of service in the fire, police, and public works departments. This quarter, my department released 10 media releases, 2 of those being directly related to the storm damage and storm updates from the June 25th storm. As we look at downtown occupancy rates, we are at 94.6%, And to clarify those boundaries, we are looking at the downtown square as well as one block off of North and South Randolph and Lafayette Street. As you look at about halfway down your paper here, we will see the statistics for the website. I want to go over a little bit of the categories that I have listed here, so it'll be a little bit easier to understand those statistics moving forward. Traffic would be the number of users who are using the site. The percent there is going to be in correlation of the month prior and an increase or a decrease. Sessions account for a singular period of session that an interaction within the site. Page views are the number of views that are going on per month. And session duration would be the amount of time that is being used within a session. So it looks like about 1 minute is very common. Organic searches are searches that are unpaid through a search engine. So that would be as if you were going to use Google and type in cityofmacomb.com. As we move to page 2, you will see some of the downtown social media statistics for the quarter. It is noted to the right of the overall reach, profile visits, and followers, the amount of increase that has been shown from the 3 months prior, both of those being positive correlations. If we move to page 3, you will also see a positive correlation from the views on the City of Macomb Facebook page. If you look at these 3 charts that are going to be highlighting the visits, reach, and followers, we will see a significant increase in between that June 25th and July 5th time period. That's going to be representing the time of the June 29th storm and the weeks preceding it. So this incline does show that our community relies on our social media outlets to gain information and our resources. This is extremely important to show that new likes are the showing of the community and the trust of the information that we're providing, as well as them wanting to continue to get information from our social media outlets. Finally, there's a list of notable meetings and events that I attended for this quarter. If there's any additional questions on any of those events or anything in my report, I'd enjoy to take them now.
Any questions for Savannah? Pretty good work for first quarter here, Savannah. Thank you. Mr. Bannon from actually, it's, you were letting her sit down. Thank you. Chief, you're on, sir. He said, okay, John's going out. I'm done.
Good evening again. I want to jump a little bit back. You'll see this page. Alderman Shue, after my last quarterly report, wanted a little bit more of a breakdown on what the calls were listed in the report. So that's what is included in there. And if you look on the second page where it says fires 100 through 173, that's what correlates to this section here. So 100 through 173. So that's everything that is encompassed in what we consider a fire call. Going back to the charts, you see we had 23 fires for the quarter. And then, our substantial amount of our calls are the rescue EMS calls at 630. Down at the monthly incident count, you can see that we're at 1,975 so far for the year. Quick note, back through June, we have 1,692. If that plays out through the rest of the year, we'll again break the record from last year for the number of calls by about 200. So it continues to be very busy. You'll notice there the fire service injuries. We had a couple guys get some fingers banged up during a couple different calls, so that's what those are indicated for. On the next page, the actual breakdown of fire incidents, it breaks it down a little bit more into a little bit more broken up categories. So structure fires, and again, we're giving quite a bit of mutual aid to our mutual aid departments on that. We had about $10,350 in fire loss. On to, skip the next page down to training and education. We had guys training in hazmat, or inspections, SCBA, rapid intervention team, rescue task force, rope operations, and company training during the quarter. We also teamed up with MPD officers and doing some training with some rescue task force in case of active shooter incidents and stuff. That was great training, teaching us how to work together, move through buildings, provide EMS to any individuals that may need it. Our biggest accomplishment for the quarter, our probationary firefighter Matt Atkinson completed his 12-month evaluation and has met all of his requirements, and he was released from probation on June 24th. Inspections, we completed 39 throughout the city. Annually, we do walkthrough inspections of the WIU buildings, so those 25 were completed. On to fire prevention. We, again, hosted several schools and businesses, had 4 station visits. Back to the smoke alarm program that we have, the Be Alarmed. We installed 5 smoke detectors in 1 residence. So just a reminder that if any homeowner out there needs smoke detectors, we have them. You just call up and we'll get you on the schedule and we can come and help you get them installed. It's free of charge for homeowners. We participated in the WIU CSI camp where we did a vehicle extrication for them. They were super pleased by the crew that went out and did that. I guess it was a big hit for all the students. We provided a misting station or water feature for the St. Paul block party. That's always a big hit. They love to go down and play in the foam. They come down and rinse off, and then they go back to the foam, and they come back and rinse off. So it's a fun time for them. Other activities, annually we have to be recertified in our respirator fit testing, so that was completed. We were in the Heritage Days Parade, attended the annual fireworks display, and on July 22nd, we completed our new hire testing for this 2-year list. We ended up with 3 on the list. So, any other questions?
Anything for the chief? Arnie, thank you, sir. And Chief Hamer.
Good evening, Council. Before you is the first quarter report for 23. I'm sure you've had a chance to review it. First quarter for us was one of growth and settling into our new positions. We've got new supervisors that have been promoted and new officers coming on board. Special events were hosted and attended through the summer. Training highlights revolve around firearm skills and this rescue task force training that Chief Meyer alluded to. Essentially, one of the lessons learned we took from the Johnson Street shooting was the ability to get paramedics into a warm or a hot zone. They have to do that under guard of police. So when we say rescue task force, what we mean is an emergency medical unit, whether that's fire or paramedic or lifeguard, coupled with an armed officer so that they can render aid in what is generally a warm or a hot zone. So it's the forefront and it's the state of the art of that nature of training. So I was pleased to have my officers participate along with the fire department and lifeguard on that training. FOIA procedures are being improved and taken over by city attorney. We're embracing that improvement. It's insulating us and making sure reporting is accurate. Body-worn camera program continues with hundreds of hours spent, especially prepping for the Johnson Street shooting trial, which is coming up in September. Calls for service, we've had about a 25% decrease from this time last year. I couldn't find an accurate explanation for that. Hopefully crime is just down, but I also know we shifted some of the months so the quarters aren't exactly aligned as they were last year. So that could be an anomaly there. But much of the activity remains status quo, except for mental health calls. I show close to a 45% increase in mental evals, as well as a 70% increase in suicidal subject calls. So these are people that are in crisis, and often police are the first to respond or get called for assistance. So we rely on our crisis intervention training and some of our partners in the social services to help partner and solve those issues. As a result of a couple calls for service with emotionally disturbed people, we had a couple taser deployments, in fact, 4 to be specific. As with all of our use of force, they're investigated and reviewed for legal, ethical, and training issues as well. Towards the end, you'll see the community service officer, Sally Vajetsi, continues to be a social service powerhouse and force multiplier. One of the funnest things I got to do this last quarter was participate in a celebrity ride-along for 4 area youth going to school. Their parents had purchased it as some sort of auction fundraiser, I believe at the Performing Arts Society. And we got car seats, strapped the kids in, took them to school, and lit up, and their faces lighting up was the highlight of that quarter for me. So I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for Chief at all?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. Last but not least, Mr. Bannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Try to keep it semi-concise. Going through the report, the revenue for the quarter was $18,000, largest section being the building permit fees. The permit category totals, construction value is $32,826,276. Good number. Code enforcement, our highest number by far was tall grass, given that it was summer with 198 code enforcement violations, 81 accumulation of refuse violations, 326 rental inspections across a variety of situations, complaint and triennial inspection driven. The planning and zoning processes, keep going through it. There was 11, across a variety. 12 was the previous quarter, so that's fairly standard. Going in through housing, touch on the facade grant later. We still have the waiting lists open for the home accessibility and repair program and the housing rehabilitation program with the community development block grant. Darren Tafflinger and WRC are administering both, so if anyone feels they're eligible, please do give WRC a call for those, or disseminate that information appropriately. We were awarded Thriving Communities Technical Assistance grant award. That does include 2 $45,000 awards. I'm working with our partner, Main Streets America, to determine that moving forward, and we did submit an application for the next round of the Strong Communities program through the Illinois Housing Development Authority. Training, some quality of life, rural partners, hoarding for staff, ongoing ICC training. Vacant building registration program is going live shortly. We've compiled a list of over 100 vacant buildings, and we're sending that to our contractor, as well as they're going to compile their own list through utility billing, foreclosures, and other sources. So hopefully that'll motivate some people to get some buildings occupied. Pocket Parks is ongoing. Special census planning. It's scheduled for October 1st, 2024. The agreement's been submitted and the funds were transferred to the Census Bureau. With our Brownfield Coalition US EPA grant that Prairie Hills is the lead on, we have 2 properties in for Phase 1 and Phase 2 assessment that the grant will pay for, and 1 property in process of being submitted for reuse planning. We awarded historic home plaques on 310 and 343 West Carroll. I just want to briefly highlight the residential facade grant program. We've got we've got 25 recipients who've already had their expenses reimbursed for $218,595.18. It does end September 15th, so we're working with some of the folks who struggled with contractors and the like to get it done. The photos, I won't go over them, but there's a variety of photos on the next few pages. And I will just say, as I was at a table for the downtown block party, woman came up to me and said, "Are you John Bannon?" To which I responded, "Yes," somewhat apprehensively, and she was so thankful because she was a facade grant recipient, and she said she never would have been able to reside her house had we not had this program. So gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. A lot of people are really happy, and I think it has cleaned up the neighborhoods because a lot of the homes really did need that work. So
Absolutely.
happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for John? Thank you. And thanks for sharing a nice segue into the downtown block party. So many of the folks you see up here, along with our partners from the Chamber of Commerce and Western Illinois University and Macomb schools, we went ahead and had our block party in spite of the slightly elevated temperature last Friday. I think we had a really, really good turnout. And as the chief spoke of, there was a little foam there too, and some spray provided by the Macomb Fire Department. I think, Savannah, we'd call it a success, wouldn't you? Yeah, and thanks for all your hard work in getting that done, and to our partners, the school district, Spoon River College, and Western Illinois University for helping us welcome all the students back last Friday. I don't believe there's anything else to come before you this evening. We'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you.